The message came through on every frequency. A distress call from a human colony under attack. The transmission was desperate, panicked, begging for help. Raiders were hitting the settlement. People were dying. Please, anyone, help us. Commander Hana analyzed the signal carefully. She ran it through every filter and diagnostic tool available. After an hour, she looked up at Captain Daewon with certainty in her eyes. It's fake, sir. The transmission is synthesized. There's no human colony in that sector. Daewon nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. The Vraken had learned from their losses. They could not find the ghost ship, so they were trying to lure it out. Make it come to them. Show me the location. The star map appeared on the view screen. A binary star system. 2 suns orbiting each other in a deadly dance. Plenty of asteroids and radiation interference. Good place for an ambush. Long-range sensors show massive Vraken presence, Lieutenant Minho reported. At least 40 warships. 3 of them are Dreadnought class. He paused, running calculations. Captain, this is their entire remaining fleet. They're committing everything to this trap. 40 ships against 1. 3 Dreadnoughts, each one nearly as large as the Blackstar and bristling with weapons. It was suicide to go in there. Any sane commander would recognize the trap and leave. Daewon studied the display in silence. His command crew waited, knowing what he was thinking. They had come this far, destroyed so many Vraken forces. But 40 ships was different from the small groups they had been attacking. This was a real battle, the kind where survival was not guaranteed. They want to see what happens when they corner us, Daewon said quietly. They think numbers will be enough. Sir, Hana began carefully, we could withdraw. Find another way. Hit smaller targets until their fleet disperses again. Daewon shook his head. They committed everything to this trap. If we destroy this fleet, the Vraken military power is broken. No more raids, no more genocides. It ends here. He looked at his officers. But I won't order you into this. It has to be your choice, Minho spoke first. I didn't spend 3 months learning how to kill Vraken just to stop now. Hana smiled slightly. Someone needs to document this for the trial. Might as well be me. Through the ship, the same sentiment echoed. The crew of the Blackstar had come too far, lost too much, accomplished too much to turn back now. 800 people made the same choice. They would fight. Engineering, Daewon called. This is going to push the ship beyond anything we've done before. Can you give me more power? Jiwoo's voice came through the speakers. She sounded excited, almost happy. Captain, I've been holding back, waiting for the right moment. I can give you 20% more power than you've ever had. But the reactor will be running at 180% capacity. If something goes wrong, it could go very wrong. Do it, Daewon ordered. Minho, I need your best work. Every shot has to count. Understood, sir. The Blackstar turned toward the binary star system. As she approached, the Vraken fleet detected her. They had been waiting for days, and now their patience was rewarded. The ghost ship was coming to them. The Vraken commander sent a message to all his ships. This human vessel has embarrassed us long enough. Today we erase that embarrassment. Surround and destroy. Leave nothing intact. The 40 Vraken ships moved into formation, a killing box designed to catch the Blackstar in crossfire from every direction. They spread out, engines burning, weapons charging. This was their moment. The Blackstar entered the system at full speed. Instead of slowing down or trying to evade, she accelerated. Straight toward the enemy fleet. Straight into the trap. On the bridge, Minho had his hands dancing across the weapons console. He had spent weeks planning for this exact scenario. Captain, executing Sol Protocol. It was named after humanity's ancient capital, a city that had been destroyed and rebuilt countless times, that never surrendered, never stopped fighting. The protocol was simple in concept but brutal in execution. Use the environment itself as a weapon. The Blackstar dove toward the binary stars, using their massive gravity to slingshot herself to impossible speeds. The Vraken ships tried to follow, but they could not match that velocity. The Blackstar whipped around the stars, the hull heating from radiation, alarms screaming in engineering as Jiwoo fought to keep the reactor stable. Then she came screaming back toward the Vraken fleet from an unexpected angle. The enemy ship scrambled to reposition. Too slow. The Blackstar opened fire at point-blank range, her weapons burning at maximum power. A Vraken destroyer exploded, cut in half by a railgun slug. A cruiser's shields collapsed under sustained laser fire. Missiles tracked perfectly into engine compartments. The Blackstar was a storm of destruction, moving too fast for the enemy to track properly. Minho's training took over. He stopped thinking and just acted, targeting, firing, moving to the next target in a fluid dance. One of the dreadnoughts turned its massive guns toward them. He fired a full missile salvo directly into its weapon ports. The explosion ripped through the ship's interior. The Blackstar rolled, dodging incoming fire, using destroyed Vraken ships as cover. Hana coordinated point defense, lasers intercepting missiles before they could hit. Dr. Suman treated wounded crew members while the ship bucked and shook around her. In engineering, Jiwoo sang to the reactor. She coaxed it, begged it, threatened it to keep running. The power output was insane, beyond anything the designers had thought possible. Warning lights blazed across every panel. She ignored them and pushed harder. 10 minutes into the battle, 12 Vraken ships were destroyed. The Blackstar had taken damage, hull breaches in 3 sections, one weapon system offline, but she was still fighting. A Vraken dreadnought tried to ram them, its captain realizing guns were not enough. The massive ship accelerated, trying to use its bulk to crush the Blackstar. Minho saw it coming. He targeted the dreadnought's reactor with a railgun. The slug punched through armor, through multiple decks, through containment fields. The reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a new sun being born. The shockwave hit the Blackstar, throwing crew members against their restraints. When the light cleared, the dreadnought was gone, just expanding plasma. 20 minutes. 25 Vraken ships destroyed. The enemy formation was breaking apart. Ships trying to flee now instead of fight. The trap had become a massacre. The third dreadnought, the flagship of the Vraken fleet, tried one last desperate attack. It fired every weapon at once, a wall of missiles and energy beams. There were too many to dodge or intercept. Brace for impact, Daewon called out. The weapons hit. The Blackstar's shields collapsed, hull plating vaporized. Explosions tore through multiple decks. In the medical bay, Dr. Suman worked frantically as wounded crew members poured in. In engineering, Jiwoo screamed at her crew to contain a plasma leak before it reached the reactor. On the bridge, a support beam collapsed. It caught Hana in the shoulder, driving her to the deck. She kept working from the floor, blood running down her arm, coordinating damage control. Minho's console sparked and died. He moved to the backup station without pausing. The Vraken dreadnought was turning for another attack run. He locked onto its bridge and fired everything they had left. The railgun slug hit perfectly. It went through the dreadnought's armor, through the bridge, through the command crew and out the other side. The ship went dark, drifting now. Everyone who could give orders dead. 37 minutes from the start of the battle. 40 Vraken ships reduced to debris. The Blackstar drifted among the wreckage, her engines damaged, her weapons depleted, her crew bleeding and exhausted. But alive. They were alive. Daewon stood on the ruined bridge. His uniform was torn. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. He looked at what remained of his crew. 17 dead. 43 wounded. The ship barely holding together. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. I want every Vraken in the galaxy to hear this. The communications officer, working from a half-destroyed console, nodded. Daewon spoke slowly, clearly. This is Captain Daewon of the USS Blackstar. To any Vraken listening, Delta Station has been avenged. You came for humanity. You came for innocence. You used weapons of horror against those who could not defend themselves. Now you know what happens when humans fight back. He paused. If you raise a weapon against the defenseless again, we will find you, and nothing will live to tell the tale. He included the tactical data from the battle, showing exactly how the Vraken fleet had been destroyed. Let them see. Let them understand. The transmission ended. The Blackstar went silent again, drifting in space surrounded by the broken remains of an empire's pride. The USS Blackstar moved through space without lights, without signals, without any trace that she existed. Captain Daewon had ordered complete communications silence. No messages to the Galactic Council, no updates to human headquarters. The ship had become a ghost, visible only when she chose to be. Commander Hana tracked the Vraken fleet using their trail through space. Every ship left traces, distortions in gravity, particles from their engines. The Vraken were not hiding. They did not think they needed to. They had destroyed Delta Station and expected no response, or at least no response that mattered. The Galactic Council would debate and discuss and eventually issue a stern statement. By then, the Fraken would have moved on to their next target. They did not know the Blackstar was coming. In engineering, Jiwoo worked miracles with the reactor. She pushed it beyond its designed limits carefully, precisely, knowing exactly how far she could go before it became dangerous. The ship could move faster now. The weapons could fire with more power. She had spent years learning every detail of this vessel, and now she used that knowledge for one purpose only: to make the Blackstar more lethal. Dr. Suman moved through the crew quarters, checking on people. The medical bay sat empty now, no wounded to treat from Delta Station. Everyone there had died, but the crew carried invisible wounds, the kind that festered in the mind. Suman talked to them, listened to them, made sure they understood that grief was normal, that rage was normal, that what they were feeling was human. Lieutenant Minho spent hours analyzing every scrap of data they had on Vrakan tactics. How they moved, how they fought, where their weaknesses were. He built computer simulations and ran them endlessly, finding the best approaches, the killing angles. War was mathematics to him now, clean and pure. He would solve the equation of how to destroy them. The Blackstar followed the Fraken trail for 2 days. Then sensors detected something. A supply convoy, 12 Vraken ships carrying weapons and food and fuel for their fleet. They moved slowly, confident in their safety this deep in their own territory. Battle stations, Daewon ordered. The crew moved to their positions smoothly, efficiently. They had drilled for this their entire careers. But this was not a drill. This was real. The ship thrummed with readiness, weapons charged, shields raised. The Blackstar dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the convoy. The Vraken ships had no warning, no time to react. Minho's targeting systems locked on all 12 vessels simultaneously. Fire, Daewon said quietly. Railguns fired. Missiles launched. Energy beams lanced out across the darkness. The Vraken convoy tried to scatter, tried to raise shields, tried to fight back. It did not matter. The Blackstar tore through them like they were made of paper. 4 minutes from first shot to last. 12 ships reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The Blackstar did not slow down, did not stop to confirm kills. There was nothing left alive to confirm. She jumped back into faster-than-light travel and vanished before any distress calls could bring help. Commander Hana monitored the Fraken communication channels. Confusion spread through their fleet. A convoy had simply disappeared. No survivors, no witnesses, no explanation. Some kind of malfunction, perhaps. A navigational error. Not an attack. Surely not an attack. Who would dare attack the Vraken Dominion? 3 days later, the Blackstar found a Vraken outpost on a dead moon. 20 buildings clustered around a fuel depot. Personnel moving between structures. Sensor arrays pointing outward. Watching for threats from space, not expecting one to drop directly on top of them. The Blackstar appeared overhead like a nightmare made real. Her weapons opened fire. The buildings exploded. The fuel depot went up in a fireball visible from orbit. Minho made sure every structure was destroyed, every ship on the surface reduced to slag. The attack lasted 90 seconds. They left nothing behind but smoke and wreckage and questions. The Vraken began to realize something was wrong. Convoys vanished. Outposts went silent. It was not malfunction or accident. Someone was hunting them, but who? They had many enemies, but none with ships powerful enough to do this kind of damage. The Blackstar struck again. A raiding party of 6 Vraken warships approaching a mining colony. Hana had intercepted their communications, knew where they were going. The Blackstar beat them there, waited in the shadow of a dead planet, weapons cold and silent. When the Vraken ships arrived, the Blackstar was among them before they realized. Point-blank range. Minho targeted engines first, crippling their ability to flee. Then weapons. Then life support. Each ship died slowly, deliberately, the way Delta Station had died. It took 20 minutes instead of 4. The Vraken crews had time to understand what was happening, time to be afraid. The mining colony was saved. They never knew how close they came to dying. The Blackstar vanished before they could detect her. After each attack, Hana pulled data from the destroyed Vraken ships. Ship logs, communications, orders from command. She pieced together the larger picture. The Vraken Dominion had a plan. They called it the Purification Protocol. Identify weak species, test weapons on civilian targets. If the weapons worked, move to full-scale extermination. Delta Station had been a test. The biological weapon had performed perfectly. The next target was scheduled in 6 months. A human colony world with 4 million inhabitants. When Daewon read that report, his expression did not change. He simply nodded and asked Hana to plot the location of the next Vraken staging area. The crew understood now what they were doing. This was not revenge, or at least not only revenge. They were preventing a genocide. 4 million human lives that would have been erased if the Blackstar had followed orders and stayed with the diplomatic convoy. The attacks continued. A Vraken weapons facility destroyed. A training base reduced to rubble. Another convoy intercepted. The Blackstar struck and vanished, a phantom that appeared without warning and left only destruction. The Vraken High Command grew desperate. They sent out hunting parties. Dozens of ships searching for this ghost. The Blackstar avoided them easily. Minho had studied their tactics. He knew how they thought, how they searched. He kept the Blackstar one step ahead always. Rumors spread across the galaxy. Traders whispered about a ghost ship. The Vraken called it the Death Shadow. Some species thought it was a legend, a story told to frighten children. Others knew better. They tracked the destroyed Vraken forces and realized something was systematically dismantling one of the galaxy's most feared empires. The Galactic Council sent messages demanding the Blackstar return. Daewon ignored them. Let them demand. Let them debate. His crew had a mission now, and it would be completed. In the quiet hours, Daewon stood alone in his quarters and thought about the choice he had made. He had disobeyed direct orders, taken his ship on an unauthorized campaign, killed thousands of Vraken, many of whom might have been innocent crew members just following orders. He would face consequences when this ended. Court-martial, prison, dishonor. He thought about 50,000 people dissolved alive, about 4 million humans who would never know how close they came to the same fate, about the terrible math of war, where killing thousands now prevented the death of millions later. He thought about these things, and he slept well. On the bridge, Commander Hana compiled her reports. Every attack documented, every decision recorded. When the trial came, she would make sure the truth was told completely. The crew of the Blackstar were not monsters. They were people who had seen evil and chosen to stop it whatever the cost. Lieutenant Minho refined his tactics. Each battle taught him something new. The Vraken were predictable in their aggression, but creative in their cruelty. He learned to think like them, to anticipate them. It made him feel dirty, but it made him effective. Engineer Jiwoo pushed the reactor harder. The ship was changing under her care, becoming something more than it had been designed to be. She worried sometimes that she was asking too much of the systems. Then she remembered Delta Station and pushed a little harder. Dr. Suman tended to the souls of the crew. Some struggled with what they were doing. Taking lives, even enemy lives, left marks. She helped them carry the weight. She reminded them that being human meant feeling the burden of violence. Only monsters killed without regret. The Blackstar hunted for 3 months across 7 star systems. The Vraken fleet had numbered over 100 vessels when this began. Now less than half remained. The Dominion was weakening, fragmenting, unsure of how to fight an enemy they could not find. Then came the message from Vraken High Command. They were setting a trap. The USS Blackstar moved through space like a bullet, her engines pushed to their absolute limits. In the engineering section, Jiwoo worked frantically at her controls, diverting power from everything non-essential. Life support dropped to minimum levels. The lights dimmed throughout the ship. Every ounce of energy fed the engines, pushing them faster, faster toward Delta Station. On the bridge, Captain Daewon watched the clock. 3 hours had become 2 hours and 40 minutes, then 2 hours and 30. Still too long. Far too long. He had ordered the communications officer to keep trying to raise Delta Station, but there was only silence now. The distress call had cut off and nothing had followed. Commander Hana stood at her station, coordinating with crew members throughout the ship. Several aliens served aboard the Blackstar, and some of them had family on Delta Station. A Trill engineer named Bixan had a sister there. A Korthan pilot had 2 daughters. Hana could see the fear in their eyes, but they kept working, kept doing their duties because that was all they could do. Lieutenant Minho prepared the weapon systems. Railguns that could punch through armor plating. Missile batteries carrying warheads that burned hotter than stars. Point defense lasers for intercepting incoming fire. The Blackstar was designed to fight entire fleets and every weapon was ready. But Minho felt sick inside. What if they were too late? What if all these weapons meant nothing? Dr. Suman turned the medical bay into a trauma center. She brought every doctor and nurse to readiness, prepared beds for hundreds of wounded, stocked supplies for burns and radiation poisoning and injuries she did not want to imagine. Her staff moved efficiently, professionally, but she saw the tension in their movements. They were preparing for horrors. 2 hours became 1 hour. The Blackstar dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Delta Station system. Long-range sensors immediately began feeding data to the bridge screens. No active weapon signatures, Minho reported. The fighting is over. That should have been good news. It was not. If the fighting was over, that meant one side had won. The silence told them which side. Take us in, Day One ordered quietly. Full sensor sweep. Look for survivors. The Blackstar glided forward, her massive bulk moving with surprising grace. Delta Station appeared on the view screen as they approached. It had been a beautiful structure once. A wheel spinning in space with docking arms extending like spokes. Thousands of windows had glittered with light, showing shops and homes and parks under artificial skies. Now it was dark. The wheel still spun, but slowly, unevenly, as if wounded. Entire sections had been ripped open, exposing the interior to vacuum. Debris floated in clouds around it, pieces of metal and plastic and things that had been part of people's lives. Furniture, clothing, toys. Life signs? Daewon asked. His voice sounded strange even to himself, hollow and distant. Hana checked her readings, checked them again, adjusted the sensors to scan deeper. None, Captain. I'm reading 0 life signs across the entire station. 50,000 people gone, all of them. Get me closer, Daewon said. I need to see. The Blackstar moved alongside the broken station. The view screen showed the damage in terrible detail. This was not the result of a quick battle. This was methodical. Section by section, the attackers had torn through the station, making sure nothing lived. Captain, Minho said, and his voice cracked slightly. I'm analyzing the weapon signatures in the debris. These weren't conventional explosives. The Vraken used biological weapons. Biological weapons. Daewon felt something cold settle in his chest. Explain. The scans show traces of an engineered compound that breaks down organic tissue at the molecular level. It would have spread through the station's atmosphere. Anyone who breathed it? Minho stopped, unable to continue. Dr. Suman pulled up the analysis on her medical readouts. Her face went white. They would have been conscious, she whispered. For at least 15 minutes, feeling their bodies dissolve from the inside. The bridge went silent. 800 crew members on the Blackstar, and the information spread through them like poison. 50,000 innocent people, families, children, merchants who had done nothing except live in the wrong place, and they had died in agony knowing what was happening to them, unable to stop it. Daewon forced himself to breathe, to think. Commander Hana, send a recovery team. Find the station's black box recorder. I want to know exactly what happened. Yes, sir. The recovery team took an hour. They moved through the dead station in environmental suits, past bodies that had dissolved into biological sludge, through corridors that still smelled of death even through their suit filters. They found the black box in the station's command center and brought it back. Jiwoo worked to extract the data. The recording was damaged but recoverable. Daewon ordered it played on the bridge speakers. He needed to hear it. They all needed to hear it. The recording began with confusion. Unidentified ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The station master trying to hail them, asking their intentions. Then the first explosion ripping through the docking ring. Screams followed. People running, the station master's voice rising in panic, sending the distress call that the Blackstar had received. Then came a new sound. Hissing. Gas being pumped through the ventilation systems. People coughing at first, then screaming. The screams changed quality as the biological weapon did its work, becoming wet and horrible. A child crying for her mother. A man begging for it to stop. Someone praying in a language Daewon did not recognize. 15 minutes of hell before the last voice fell silent. The recording ended. The bridge remained quiet. Several crew members were crying. Minho looked like he might be sick. Even Hana, who had seen terrible things in her years of service, had tears running down her face. Daewon stood very still. He felt something building inside him, something he had kept controlled for his entire career. Rage, pure and clean and cold as the void between stars. Captain, the sensor officer called out. Contact at the edge of the system. Single vessel, Fraka design, scout class. They had left a ship behind to watch, to record the station's final moments and the response of anyone who came, to see if the biological weapon worked as designed. Daewon walked slowly to the weapons console. He placed his hand on Minho's shoulder. Destroy it, he said quietly. Complete destruction. I want nothing left but atoms. Minho's hands moved over the controls. Target locked. Railgun charged. He pressed the firing stud. The weapon fired in silence, as all weapons did in space. The slug moved faster than the eye could follow, crossing the distance in seconds. It hit the Vraken scout ship dead center and kept going. The kinetic energy so enormous that the ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level. No distress call. No time for the Vraken crew to even understand what killed them. They were there and then they were not. Message to all stations, Daewon said. His voice was perfectly calm now, settled into the cold place where rage lived. We are pursuing the Vraken fleet responsible for this atrocity. Any crew member who wishes to transfer off the Blackstar may do so now. I will not order anyone into what comes next. He waited. The crew looked at each other. Hana met his eyes and shook her head. Minho straightened at his console. Through the ship, 800 souls made the same choice, not one person left. Very well, Daewon said. Engineering, prepare the ship for extended operations. Cut all communications with Council headquarters. From this moment, we are dark. Commander Hana, plot the Vraken fleet's trajectory. Lieutenant Minho, prepare all weapon systems. He looked at the broken station spinning slowly on the view screen. 50,000 dead. 50,000 who had trusted that the galaxy was safe, that the Council would protect them, that civilization meant something. We hunt now, Captain Daewon said quietly, and nothing lives to tell the tale. The USS Blackstar turned away from Delta Station, her weapons armed, her crew united in purpose. Behind her, the dead station spun on in silence, a monument to innocence destroyed. Ahead lay the Vraken Dominion, unaware that they had awakened something terrible. The stars stretched endlessly across the view screen of the USS Blackstar, each one a distant sun holding worlds unknown. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the light bend and shimmer as his ship cut through space at speeds that would have seemed impossible 2 centuries ago. He was a man of 47 years, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of difficult decisions made in the dark between stars. The Blackstar was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and armor plating that could withstand the fury of a small sun. It was a Titan-class warship, one of only 12 in the human fleet, and Daewon had commanded her for 6 years. In that time, they had seen action twice, both times in border disputes that ended with diplomacy rather than bloodshed. He preferred it that way. War was waste, and waste offended him. Commander Hana stepped up beside him, tablet in hand. She was 39, shorter than the captain, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had served with Daewon for 4 years and knew his moods better than most. Sir, we're 3 hours from the rendezvous point. The diplomatic convoy is waiting for our escort. Daewon nodded slowly. The mission was simple enough on paper. Escort a group of Galactic Council diplomats to the Outer Rim, where 2 alien species had been fighting over mineral rights for the past decade. Humanity was still new to the Council, barely 200 years into space travel compared to civilizations that had sailed the stars for millennia. This escort duty was both an honor and a test. How's the crew? Daewon asked. Ready, sir. Lieutenant Minho has run 3 combat drills this week. The weapon systems are performing at peak efficiency. Hana paused. He's eager. Maybe too eager. He's young, Daewon said. Minho was 31 and brilliant, a prodigy who had graduated top of his class at the Naval Academy. But he had never seen real combat, never watched people die. Daewon had, and he did not wish that knowledge on anyone. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments and the low hum of the reactor deep in the ship's belly. Engineer Jiwoo kept that reactor running like a heartbeat, steady and strong. She was down there now, Daewon knew, probably elbow deep in some system making adjustments that only she understood. The woman was a genius with machinery, could coax performance out of equipment that made the designers back home scratch their heads. Dr. Suman walked onto the bridge carrying a coffee for the captain. She was 42, the chief medical officer, and one of the few people on the ship who would tell Daewon when he was being stupid. You've been standing here for 3 hours, she said, handing him the cup. Your back will hate you tomorrow. My back already hates me, Day One replied, but he took the coffee gratefully. It was good, rich and dark, from beans grown in the hydroponics bay. The crew of the Blackstar numbered 800 souls, human and alien both, and they had learned to live together like a small city drifting through the void. The ship trembled slightly as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The stars stopped streaking and became points of light again. Ahead, 5 smaller ships waited, diplomatic vessels painted in the white and gold of the Galactic Council. Day One touched a control and opened a channel. This is Captain Day One of the USS Blackstar. We are in position to begin escort duty. A face appeared on the screen, an alien with blue skin and 4 eyes. Captain, we are pleased to see you. The route to the outer rim has been unstable lately. Your presence is most welcome. They said the words correctly, but Day One heard something underneath them. Doubt, perhaps. Humanity was still proving itself to the older races. They saw humans as children playing with weapons they did not fully understand. It was frustrating, but Day One had learned patience over the years. The convoy formed up, the Blackstar taking point position like a wolf leading sheep. They jumped to faster-than-light travel again, and the journey continued. Hours passed in the strange, timeless way they did in deep space. Day One rotated shifts, made his rounds through the ship, checked in with department heads. Everything was routine, everything was normal. Then Lieutenant Minho called him back to the bridge. Captain, we're picking up something strange on long-range sensors. Gravitational anomalies near the neutral zone. Day One studied the readouts. Space should be empty out there, just dust and distant stars. But the sensors showed distortions, the kind made by large objects moving at high speed. How many? Hard to say, sir. At least 20 contacts. Maybe more. Minho's voice was tight with excitement or worry, perhaps both. Commander Hana pulled up intelligence reports on her screen. The Vrakan Dominion has territory near there. They're an aggressive species, but they've been quiet for years. The Council considers them stable. The Council considers everyone stable until they're not, Day One muttered. He had read about the Vrakan. They believed in strength above all else, saw compassion as weakness. Their empire was built on conquest and subjugation. But they had signed treaties with the Council decades ago, had pledged to respect borders and neutral zones. Send the sensor data to Council headquarters, Day One ordered. Encoded highest priority. Let them know we're tracking unusual military movements near the neutral zone. Hana's fingers moved over her console, sending the message at light speed toward the center of the galaxy where the Council met. It would take time to arrive. More time for them to debate and discuss and form committees. Politicians moved slowly, especially when multiple species with different interests had to agree. The convoy continued on its path. 2 days passed, then 3. The diplomatic mission went as planned. The 2 alien species agreed to share the mineral rights, signed documents, made speeches about cooperation and the bright future. Humanity's role as neutral escort was noted and praised. It should have been a success. On the 4th day, the message came. It was a distress call, weak and breaking apart with static. A human voice, desperate and afraid. This is Delta Station. We are under attack. Multiple hostile vessels. They came without warning. Please, anyone, we need help. They're killing everyone. The signal cut off. Nothing but silence followed. Day One stood frozen on the bridge. Delta Station was a civilian trading hub, home to 50,000 people of various species. It had no military value, no strategic importance. It was just a place where merchants met and families lived and children grew up between the stars. How far? He asked, his voice very quiet. 3 hours at maximum velocity, Hana replied. Her face had gone pale. Day One looked at the diplomatic convoy ahead of them. His orders were clear. Stay with the convoy. Ensure the diplomats reach their destination safely. Do not deviate from the mission parameters. He thought about 50,000 people dying while he followed orders. Set course for Delta Station, Day One said. Maximum speed. Battle stations. The Blackstar turned away from the convoy, her massive engines burning bright as she raced toward the screaming. The USS Blackstar drifted in the debris field for 3 days, while Engineer Jiwoo and her team worked miracles. The reactor had come dangerously close to failure during the battle. Now Jiwoo crawled through damaged sections in a radiation suit, welding, patching, improvising repairs that the ship's designers would probably have called impossible. In the medical bay, Dr. Suman moved between beds where the wounded lay. 17 crew members had died in the battle. Their bodies were prepared for burial in space according to their customs. 43 more carried injuries ranging from minor burns to crushed limbs. Suman worked 20-hour shifts, barely sleeping, making sure everyone who could be saved was saved. Commander Hana sat in her quarters with her shoulder wrapped in bandages. The support beam had broken her collarbone. Suman had ordered her to rest, but Hana ignored the order. She worked on her tablet, documenting everything. Every battle, every decision, every consequence. When the tribunal came, and it would come, the truth would be told completely. Lieutenant Minho walked through the weapons bays, inspecting the damage. Half their railguns were destroyed. The missile reserves were empty. Most of the energy weapons needed complete replacement. The Blackstar had given everything in that battle. If another enemy appeared now, they would be defenseless. But no enemies came. The Vrakan transmission had spread across their space. The footage of their fleet's destruction had been seen by millions. The greatest military force the Dominion had ever assembled, destroyed in 37 minutes by a single human ship. The psychological impact was devastating. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge and watched reports filter in from across Vrakan space. Their empire was collapsing from within. Subject species that had been conquered and enslaved for decades saw the destroyed fleet and realized their oppressors were not invincible. Rebellions broke out on a dozen worlds. Vrakan colonies found themselves under siege. The Vrakan High Command, what remained of it, fractured into competing factions. Some wanted revenge against humanity. Others wanted to sue for peace. Still others wanted to crack down on the rebellions with brutal force. They fought each other while their empire burned around them. The Galactic Council sent another message demanding the Blackstar return. This time, Daewon responded, "We are returning. Our mission is complete. The Vrakan threat has been neutralized. We are ready to face the consequences of our actions." The journey home took 2 weeks at the damaged ship's best speed. Jiwoo kept the engines running through sheer stubbornness and genius. The crew was quiet during those weeks. They had done something extraordinary, something that would be studied and debated for generations. But the cost weighed on them. They passed Delta Station on the way back. The broken wheel still spun slowly in space, a tomb for 50,000 souls. Daewon ordered the ship to stop. The entire crew gathered in observation decks and on the bridge to look at the station in silence. "They will not be forgotten," Daewon said quietly. "This is why we fought. This is why 17 of our own died. Not for revenge, for prevention, so that no one else would suffer what they suffered." The Blackstar moved on, leaving Delta Station behind but carrying its memory forward. When they reached human space, a fleet of ships was waiting, not to welcome them but to escort them. The USS Blackstar was ordered to proceed directly to Earth orbit where a tribunal had been assembled. Captain Daewon and his senior officers would face charges. The crew prepared for arrival. They cleaned their uniforms, polished what they could of the damaged ship, stood straight despite their wounds. They had fought with honor. Now they would face judgment with the same. Earth grew large in the view screen, blue and green and beautiful. Home. Daewon realized how much he had missed it, how much he had risked never seeing it again. The tribunal was held in the Grand Assembly Hall. 3 judges, 1 military, 1 civilian, 1 representing the Galactic Council. The charges were read: disobeying direct orders, unauthorized military action, excessive use of force, causing a diplomatic incident. The list went on. Captain Daewon stood in his damaged uniform and accepted the charges. He did not deny them. Everything they accused him of, he had done deliberately and would do again given the same circumstances. The prosecution presented their case. Orders ignored. A diplomatic mission abandoned. A ship taken on an unsanctioned campaign that had destroyed hundreds of enemy vessels and nearly caused a war. This was not how civilized people behaved. This was not how the human military was supposed to operate. Then Commander Hana presented the defense. She showed the evidence from Delta Station. The recordings of 50,000 people dying in agony. The data proving the Vrakan had planned to exterminate 4 million humans within 6 months. The biological weapons designed specifically to cause maximum suffering. She showed the intercepted communications proving this was not an isolated incident but part of a systematic campaign to genocide multiple species. The Galactic Council had known about Fracken aggression for years and done nothing except issue statements and form committees. The crew of the Blackstar did not start this war, Hana said, her voice strong despite the pain in her shoulder. We finished it. We stopped a genocide. We saved 4 million human lives and countless alien lives. If that is a crime, then we are proudly guilty. The tribunal watched footage of the Battle of Crimson Nebula. 40 Vracken ships destroyed. The tactical brilliance of Lieutenant Minho. The engineering genius of Jiwoo keeping the ship running past any reasonable limit. The courage of 800 crew members who chose to fight against impossible odds. Expert witnesses testified. Military tacticians explained that the Blackstar's campaign had been the most successful military operation in human history. Xenobiologists discussed the Vracken culture and confirmed they would never have stopped their genocide program without a catastrophic defeat. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The entire galaxy watched. Public opinion was divided. Some called the crew heroes. Others called them war criminals. Everyone agreed they had changed everything. The judges deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the Grand Assembly Hall was packed with spectators, journalists, and military personnel. Captain Daewon, the military judge, said, "This tribunal finds you guilty of disobeying direct orders, guilty of unauthorized military action. These are serious charges that cannot be overlooked." Daewon stood straight, ready to accept his sentence. However, the civilian judge continued, "We also find that your actions were justified under extreme circumstances. The evidence proves beyond doubt that a genocide was being prevented. The Galactic Council failed in its duty to protect innocent life. You and your crew did not fail." The council judge spoke last. "The verdict is guilty on all charges related to military protocol. The punishment is removal from active duty and dishonorable discharge." He paused. "But you will also receive a full pardon for those offenses, effective immediately. The galaxy owes the crew of the USS Blackstar a debt that can never be repaid." The assembly hall erupted in noise. Reporters shouted questions. People argued. Daewon just stood quietly, feeling the weight of the past months finally lifting slightly from his shoulders. The crew of the Blackstar was honorably discharged. They were given medals in a private ceremony, away from the cameras and the debates. Each of them received the Star of Valor, the highest military honor humanity could bestow. The USS Blackstar herself was decommissioned. She was too damaged to repair fully, and her reputation was too large for normal service. Instead, she was preserved in orbit around Earth, a museum and memorial. People could walk her decks and see where history had been made. Delta Station was rebuilt. The new station was larger, more beautiful than before. At its center was a memorial garden under an artificial sky. 50,000 names were inscribed on walls of polished stone. People came from across the galaxy to pay respects. The Vracken Dominion collapsed completely within a year. The subject species that had been enslaved became independent. Some joined the Galactic Council, others chose isolation. The Vracken themselves split into dozens of small nations, no longer a threat to anyone. The Galactic Council revised all its policies on responding to genocide. The bureaucracy that had let Delta Station happen was torn apart and rebuilt. New protocols were established. The lesson was learned at terrible cost, but it was learned. 10 years passed. Captain Daewon, no longer a captain, lived quietly. He taught at the Naval Academy, training new officers. He told them about the cost of war, about the burden of command, about the difference between following orders and doing what was right. One day he received a message. His old crew wanted to meet at the Delta Station Memorial. They gathered there, older now, carrying the years differently. Hana walked with a cane from her old injury. Minho had gray in his hair. Jiwoo had retired to design ships that were safer, better. Sumin ran a trauma center for veterans. They stood together in the memorial garden looking at the names on the walls. A young ensign approached them nervously. "Excuse me, are you the crew from the Blackstar? The ones who fought the Vracken?" Daewon looked at his old crew. They had saved millions of lives, lost 17 of their own, changed the course of galactic history.